Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Deciding to Soar, Living Life Your Own Way. My name is Sharron Jamison, and I am a life strategist, a corporate leader, a healer, a minister, and a mom. And if this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. I am so grateful that you are here. And this podcast is an unedited, unscripted space where I share what I'm learning in my own life, as well as what I am learning from working with so many healers, leaders, entrepreneurs, visionaries, and brave souls. People just like you. And today I'm so excited about our time together because I am going to respond to some questions that I received from one of my newsletters that I shared about my time as an aerobics instructor. And what was interesting is that the responses and the questions that I received really point at three deep truths that I think will not only support you, but provide some ideas, some insights as you are making decisions in your life about reinvention, healing, reclamation, liberation, retirement, and anything that might be a new question as you are embarking on a new chapter or a new season in your life. And I think there were three questions to me that really provided some themes about some of the responses that I received. And so I took my notes and I wanted to share with you three questions that I believe are underneath all of the comments that I received about the newsletter. One of the questions that I want us to sit with today was, how do you give yourself permission to do something you genuinely want to do when other people don't agree with you and when other people don't understand what you want to do? So that's the first question. How do you give yourself permission to proceed? The second question I really resonated with was, how do you pursue something that fits you and you know that it fits you even when everyone else is evaluating your decision based on status, money, prestige, or any other external factor that society deems as success? That's the second question. And the third question that bubbled to the surface was, how do you keep going and pursuing your dream when the people around you don't support the choices you make? How do you keep going forward? How do you keep saying yes to yourself when people are telling you to say no, right? And so for those of you who don't receive the newsletter, what was in the newsletter was a story that I shared about my desire and my decision to become an aerobics instructor in the 1990s. And at that time, I had just finished graduate school. I had an MBA. I had a very successful career in the bioform industry. I had a business, I had benefits, I had a company car, and I decided I also wanted to become an aerobics instructor. Even though I had success and I was achieving and excelling in my corporate job, I wanted to be an aerobics instructor. And what fascinated me was that at that time that I made that decision in the 1990s, as well as from some of the feedback from the newsletter, people were puzzled as to why I would make that decision. After just finishing graduate school, why would I even think about something like that? And so today I wanted to share 5 lessons that my decision to become an aerobics instructor taught me that I think applies to everyone who is entering a new season, a new chapter, a new adventure. Because it doesn't matter if you are starting a new career, starting a new position, a new business, a new ministry, writing a book, starting retirement, or just simply starting a new version of yourself, a new identity of how you want to be in the world. I think these 5 lessons resonate and will support you as you are thinking about the journey. So here are the 5 lessons, and I will try to be as succinct as I can because each lesson is packed what I think insight to help you navigate your new season. The first insight and the first lesson I learned when I chose to be an aerobics instructor in the 1990s was that a position does not mean it's your final purpose. Again, a short-term decision does not dictate or does not mean that that position will be your long-term purpose. And I want to highlight that because when I decided to be an aerobics instructor, people thought the job was beneath me. People thought I was too good for that job. But what I've learned over the years is that no honest work is beneath you that aligns with who you are. No work is beneath you. I don't care what society says. If it's honest, if it supports you, that's important. It doesn't matter what title, doesn't matter the position, doesn't matter anything like that. And I think that's important for us to name because in society, in our culture, we are taught to chase prestige, chase positions, chase jobs that sound impressive so that you will have something to talk about at the party or with your friends, to chase something that symbolizes leadership and a power. But what I've learned from my life and over 40 years of working with other people, titles don't create fulfillment. I think I want to say that 400 more times. Titles don't create fulfillment. Because a position that could look impressive to everyone else can still leave you very miserable. It can leave you empty. It can leave you lacking fulfillment and joy. And so we have to understand that any type of role we choose, it needs to make us feel alive. It needs to make us feel empowered and confident and proud of ourselves. So a role might be something that other people don't understand for you, even though you know it's right for you. And so the question, if you are thinking about embarking on something in this new season in your life, the question is not how a role or position or a title makes you look. The deeper question is, how does a role or title make you feel? Feel inside. How does it make you feel about yourself? And what does the role or the title help you become? That's the important question. So when you're thinking about a position, it's not about how does it look. It's how does it make you feel? What does it allow you to become? And what does it bring to your life? So that's the first question. The first question is about position. The second lesson I learned from becoming an aerobics instructor, even though I had a corporate career, is that perception is everything to some people, right? Because people will often, I think the word is diminish and dismiss what they don't understand. And they might diminish it or dismiss it out of arrogance, out of ignorance, but either way it happens. But what people didn't understand about teaching an aerobics class was that it was more than just exercising and counting to 8. It was something that allowed me to gain different skills. It was something that allowed me to tap into some of my future dreams. It was something that helped me move my vision for myself forward. And so people might just perceive the surface. The surface was, oh, it was just an aerobics instructor. And part of that was true. But what they didn't see was that being an aerobics instructor was the foundation of carrying some of my dreams forward in ways that I didn't even understand, but I felt it was right. And so just know that many people won't understand your path because they have a perception of what that means. But it's not their job to understand your path. It's not their job to understand what you're deciding to do. And here is the most important thing I want you to remember about perception. Just because a person doesn't see your vision doesn't mean that you don't have a vision. Because their ability to see your vision or their inability to see your vision does not impact your victory. You have to see it. You need to know and believe that there's something beyond the surface of a position or a job or a title. And just because they don't understand, their perception has nothing to do with your purpose. And if you don't give their perception power, you will be able to move in power and also to move in greater peace because you're not distracted by their perspective of what you should be doing in this chapter of your life. So that's the second lesson. The third lesson is a touchy lesson, and it deals with profit. Profit. I think we have grown up in our culture to believe that money is everything. Now, let's be clear, money matters. I like money. I like to make money. I like to spend money. I like to invest money. Money gives you options. It gives you opportunities. It brings you resources. Sometimes it brings you access. Money helps us meet many of our responsibilities to take care of ourselves and to take care of our families. And I just want to put that information out there so people don't get the impression that I don't like money. I enjoy money and all of the benefits of having money, right? But I know that when we choose a position, a job, a path for our life, it's also important to remember that money is not the only way we get paid. money is not the only way you get paid in life. Sometimes we get paid in experience. Sometimes we get paid by opportunities to build our confidence, our opportunities to build our courage. Sometimes we get paid in our freedom because we're doing what we want to do and doing it not only when we want to do it, but how we want to do it. That is a way to get paid. Sometimes we get paid in our healing because there are parts of us in other positions that we had to abandon or edit to fit in surroundings, and now we have a job or a position that allows us to be all of who we are. And even if we make less money, we are getting paid by an opportunity to heal. Maybe we're getting paid by joy. Joy is a form of strength. It's a form of currency that allows us to come alive and to not only smile on the outside, but to smile on the inside. And so I think it's important that we remember that some things can pay you in ways that a paycheck can never pay you. And for me, teaching aerobics class, even though I had the 6-figure salary and the company car, something about aerobics and being an aerobics instructor paid me in ways that my job couldn't. And I'm so grateful because it gave me a different type of confidence, because it allowed me to see myself in different settings. It gave me a place to experiment something new. It gave me a place to experiment leading different people and different demographics and different ability levels. It helped me develop language to speak to people based on how they saw themselves. It gave me a place to discover different parts of myself. And so I think it's important that when we are considering what to do in our lives, that we appreciate that sometimes the greatest compensation is not financial. Sometimes the greatest compensation we receive from a position or title. Sometimes the greatest compensation is spiritual. It is emotional. Sometimes it's physical. Sometimes it's developmental, because you're getting opportunities that you never received before. So I am saying, yes, accept the money. Make sure you are getting paid your worth. But know that money is not the only way to be paid. And so we have to look at ourselves as a total being with emotional, spiritual, financial, developmental, mental needs, and all of those needs can be paid in ways that support our ultimate goals, whatever that needs to be. So that's something I want you to think about, and that was a very important lesson that I learned when I decided to be an aerobics instructor. The fourth lesson that I learned, I want you to write down, is about pressure. The fourth lesson was about pressure. Because what I want all of us to remember is that whenever you follow your own path, whenever you follow your own dreams, do not expect support from a big crowd. You may receive support from only a core. And in my situation, I had a core of people who said, go ahead and be an aerobics instructor. It was my husband, who is my ex-husband now, but my husband at the time was supportive. One of my best friends named Jackie, we've been friends almost 35, 36 years. She was supportive. Had another friend at the time, Denise. So I had 3 people that said, Sharron, go for it. Even though everyone else was telling me that the job was beneath me. And so I want you to know that it's okay to have a core of people support you. And sometimes you might not even have a core. You might only have you and your conscious. And that has to be okay, because sometimes you don't get a crowd. But here is the important thing to remember. We have to find ways to encourage ourselves. We have to find ways to climb even when people are not clapping for us. Because if you live for applause, you will die for applause. And if you live for recognition and validation, you will forfeit every dream, but you will also forfeit your independence. Because your confidence, your your sense of self will always be in the hands of another person. Your sense of integrity will always be in the hands of another person. And so I want you to remember that you have to know that even if you don't have a crowd, even if you don't have a core, that you and your conscious is enough. So you have to trust yourself and trust your vision, trust your dreams, trust your goals, even if it means you have to walk alone. So that is the fourth important lesson that I learned when I made that decision in the early 1990s. And the fifth lesson I learned that I think is important is personality. And this is an important lesson because it is important that sometime through your lifetime that you get to experience every aspect of your personality. Every aspect. So you can really not only express yourself, but experience your full self. And being an aerobics instructor in the 1990s allowed me to experience more of myself because I loved music, I loved movement, I love motivating people, I love talking, I love preaching, I love energy, I love teaching, and I also loved pushing people beyond their limits. I loved engaging with different demographics and different generations and different ability levels. And so the aerobics classroom, and that aerobics classroom sometimes, as I shared in the newsletter, it was in aerobics studio, but initially it wasn't because I couldn't get a job. And so when I taught aerobics at churches, at oncology centers, at HIV centers, at nursing homes, in the park, I learned so much about myself. And it allowed me to explore dimensions of my personality that I didn't even know I had. Because it allowed me to take off all those personas. I didn't have to be the corporate Sharron. I didn't have to be the minister Sharron. I didn't have to be the problem solving Sharron. I didn't have to fit someone else's expectations, and I could simply be myself, whatever that meant. And it was one of the first experiences of being myself that prepared me for everything that would come later. Everything like being a speaker, being a coach, writing, different aspects of ministry, leadership, having a podcast, being on YouTube. All of that started when I stepped out in the 1990s and gave myself permission to be seen, to be known, to have fun, to take off all of the identities based on what society taught me was important to be. I just was able to have fun. And fun and creativity allows you to experiment in ways that allow you to see yourself. So teaching aerobics in many ways became a laboratory for me. It became a laboratory where I got to practice courage in different settings, how I got to practice speaking and discover my voice, how to lead people with different abilities, how to encourage people, what words to use. I had a chance to experience and explore tone and rhythm and different types of music, and so I want you to remember that in your life, that the thing that people dismiss as insignificant might become one of the most significant experiences of your life, because you get to understand who you were created to be and not who you were curated to be by a society who wanted you to fit into roles and stereotypes and narratives and scripts, and a society that expects you to follow these rules and these assumptions and these expectations and these paths. And you will get to see more of yourself when you allow yourself to be free from all of that. And so today I want to leave you with a question that I had to answer in the 1990s, and a question that sometimes I still have to answer today for myself is, are you evaluating your next chapter based on a certain position because people perceive it as prestige? Because that's really important. People are dealing with layoffs and career transitions and job changes. Are you only looking at jobs that everyone is going to validate you for? Are you only looking at jobs and titles and positions where everyone will be impressed by you? Or are you looking for a job that fits who you are? Because the fit is what brings fulfillment. And also, as you are looking and evaluating your next chapter, your next path, are you making decisions solely on your purpose or on your desire for prestige? Are you paying attention to your conscience, or are you being dictated to by the crowd? Are you evaluating how you can experience and experiment and explore more of your personality? Or will you live your life only understanding 3 dimensions of who you were created to be? Because I feel that sometimes the opportunities that change our lives are usually the opportunities that others won't understand, others won't choose for us, things that people think are too small. And I believe that the path, and I know it from my own life, to becoming who you were called to be begins with giving yourself permission. Permission to do something that simply feels right. Not because of profit, not because of prestige, but because of your purpose, because of your power, because of your personality, and because you are committed to being a person who is multi-layered, multifaceted, multi-leveled, multi-layered, and multi-purposed. And a person who wants to have multiple ways of experience joy. Yeah? And so I want to leave you with this. If you are considering your next step, please trust yourself and trust that you can always course correct. Because remember, life is a big experiment. That's the first thing. The second thing is that if you know someone who needs this message, will you please send it to them and let them know that they're not alone? The third thing is I want you to also explore becoming part of my newsletter community where I share deeper insights I would love to share with you. And if you also want to, in addition to listening to the podcast, you can always go to SharronJamison.com. I always write a blog about what we discuss. I also write some posts in Substack. So I want you to encourage you to do that. And then I also want you to know that if there's ever an opportunity where you just want to spend some time, maybe one-on-one or in a group setting, I want to invite you to work with me one-on-one to think about all these, how these a life changing chapter, what that means to you, and how you can think about your purpose and your power and your personality differently. And if you are interested in connecting and working in a small group of women who are also making changes in their own lives, I want you to consider the Reclamation Circle. I think that might be an opportunity for you to take off all your personas and just show up as your most authentic self and see where that leads. So I want to invite you to that opportunity too. And as I end every podcast, I want to leave you with a benediction, something that I am thinking in my own life and believing in my own life and trusting in my own life. And it reads as follows: May you have the courage to choose fit over appearances. May you trust your calling, even when others question it. May you find work that nourishes both your livelihood and your spirit. May you have the wisdom to recognize that money is only one form of compensation. And may you have the confidence you need to honor your personality and the gifts that make you uniquely you. And may you always remember that the goal is not simply to find a job. The goal is to become the person you were created to be. So thanks so much for listening to me and being with me today on YouTube or on your podcast platform. And until next time, keep growing, keep believing, keep trusting, keep growing, keep creating a life that is uniquely your own. And remember that you can always dare to soar higher, because the best is still yet to come. Thank you so much and have a blessed day.